Joining me right now is Wisconsin Congressman, House Armed Services Committee member Mike Gallagher. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much. Give us your reaction to Griff Jenkins' report. I know that you were the one to question whether or not the deterrence actually failed, and we see that clearly any program to stop Putin has failed. Your thoughts?
Well, that's obvious. Putin invaded Ukraine despite the threats by the Biden administration to punish him with sanctions. They relied entirely on non-military instruments of national power to dissuade Putin, and Putin was not dissuaded. Right now, we're dealing with another issue. The Pentagon, in our opinion, as the lead Republican on the Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers, pointed out in our hearing the other day, is not moving fast enough to provide the Ukrainians with the S-300 air defense systems, which will only grow more important if indeed the Russians renew their offensive on Kyiv and other cities throughout the country. So there's much more we can do, but the Biden administration repeatedly has gotten caught flat-footed. They're constantly responding to events, and it's their fear of provoking Putin that too often is dictating their decisions. We need to stop playing just not to lose. We need to play to win and provide Zelensky with the support he needs.
Well, I mean, why? We're in the second month of this. Zelensky has been begging for help, air power, whatever weapons he needs. Even your colleague, Michael Waltz, joined me last week, said that the Ukrainians need 2 weapon systems and they can win. A lot of people say there's a path to victory. Jack Keane said that they could win. Why isn't the U.S. moving faster?
It is that fear of provoking Putin, Maria. That's dictated what all their actions from the start, and I think hamstrung our response. And furthermore, it is appalling to me that certain senior Pentagon officials are spiking the football and celebrating the success of integrated deterrence at the same time that under oath, the generals will admit, as General Walters did admit to me, that deterrence failed in Ukraine. And so the question is why? Why that disparity? I think it's because the generals are under pressure from their political bosses, and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party does not want to invest in defense. The same people that brought you defund the police want to defund the military. And integrated deterrence is a fancy phrase that covers for that fact. It covers for the fact they want to cut conventional hard power.
Well, that was like a sad excuse for an increase in defense spending the other day. What is your take on the budget that President Biden came out with, proposed $5.8 trillion budget? He's got an increase of 20% in spending at the IRS and an increase of 4% for spending on defense. I mean, that doesn't even keep up with inflation. It's actually a decline when you consider the fact that inflation is running at an 8% pace.
It is a decline, and McKinsey just released a report suggesting that if inflation continues at the current rate, that overall number of $780 billion, let's call it, actually works out to more like $600 billion in what they're actually able to purchase with that money. So this is a cut to defense, and again, it gets to this point that they're attempting to cut conventional hard power while at the same time elevating things, progressive priorities like climate change and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military. After all, Maria, these are the same people that keep lecturing us and telling us that diversity is our strength. Well, I'm sorry, as someone who served in the military, actual strength, physical strength, mental strength, overall end strength is our strength. And integrated deterrence and this budget is not about strength. It is about abandoning peace through strength and laundering weakness into American foreign policy.
Well, look, the climate change policy and agenda is the priority. We know that. We've just been talking about the Securities and Exchange Commission new rules. China is watching all of that. We know that as well. European Union leaders are now meeting with Chinese Premier Li right now. There is an EU-China summit underway. State media is reporting that China's Li said that China is pushing for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine in its own way. Chinese President Xi Jinping is scheduled to meet with the EU leaders later this morning. Congressman, what should we expect out of this EU-China summit?
Well, we should expect that the Communist Party in China will attempt to portray itself as peacemakers, but the reality is the opposite. They have stood by Putin from the start. They have been at least witting participants in Putin's slaughter, and don't believe this narrative that there's somehow a rift between Putin and Xi. These are very hard men that are committed to the destruction of the West, and the fact is Xi has supported Putin's rationale for the war since the beginning. So our European allies really need to wake up. They need to have their road to Damascus moment on China. It would be deeply ironic and tragic if, after waking up from their dependency on Russian gas, they find themselves more dependent on another authoritarian adversary in China, because it could be Chinese 5G technology that they're dependent on. And so China, we cannot fall for this narrative from the Chinese Communist Party that they're interested in peace. All they're interested in is undermining the United States of America and our Western allies.
Should we be doing anything now to get ahead of a potential invasion by China of Taiwan? Are you among those advocating to get ready for something now that we've seen what Putin is capable of? Are we going to see what Xi Jinping is capable of soon enough?
100%. This is the biggest lesson from the failure of deterrence in Ukraine. In order to deter the Chinese invasion of Taiwan, which I think is increasingly likely within the next 3 years, we must put hard power in place now before it's too late. We must arm the Taiwans with asymmetric capabilities, missiles, things that are capable of preventing the invasion in the first place. That's the lesson, but it's a lesson that I don't think we have learned yet. We're not moving with a sense of urgency, and we must before it's too late.
Well, I don't know if Joe Biden is going to go against Xi Jinping in any way, particularly amidst all of these stories of compromised Biden family after all of the money that they took in. There's that, Congressman, that you have to consider.
And we have to investigate that. One of the reasons why we need to take back the House is so we have full subpoena power to do an investigation not only of that issue, but also into the origins of coronavirus, the failures in Afghanistan. The manifest failures of this administration deserve to be investigated. People need to be held accountable. And right now we have a crisis of accountability in this country. My voters are frustrated because they see people failing, lying to them, and no one's held accountable. That's what a Republican House can do if we take charge.
All right, Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much. We'll be watching all of that. Mike Gallagher joining us this morning in D.C.